and I'm starting to develop form. Oh god, the sketchbook's got a weird bug on it. Normally, generally, people tend to think of a car, if they're doing a car, as in it's got a side, it's got a roof, and it's got four wheels, blah blah blah. And I find recently, the more that I do this in my spare time, that that looks restrained in terms of it's not very conceptual, because I've already set in stone that I've got to get to these wheels, and I end up doing a pretty standard sketch like that. So what I tend to do now is I ignore that, and I don't think about the wheels and how they're going to be positioned on a car. So what I'll, for the Saab and all that kind of extreme stuff, I started just doing like random shapes and as few lines as possible to kind of just get some kind of form. And then from that, I think, okay, I can turn that into a car now. So maybe I'll put a ground plane in. And then I'll put some kind of arch in there. And then maybe a front wing. And this is kind of how I started to develop the form for the Saab. Just by trying to not restrain my mind in a way. It's like kind of muscle memory, where you start to draw the same things all the time. So to kind of avoid that, rather than thinking about the wheels in the first place, I try and do it as few lines as possible, just to get the essence of what the shape's going to be. So that's kind of the feature that I want, sort of thing. So maybe I'll put some kind of vent in there where it kind of goes negative down here, maybe, and maybe see a line coming in here. But this is kind of going to be the feature of the car, maybe, and that's kind of the roof line. And then whatever happens over here happens over there. So by doing that and starting that way, I don't end up with a traditional sort of, you've got a shoulder, and then you've got a sill, and then you've got a daylight opening, and then you've got a wheel. So you already have kind of got what looks like a typical car before even drawing in the windscreen and the bonnet. So I'm trying to avoid that at all costs when I'm starting to develop ideas and forms, because as extreme as this is, you'll pick out elements, and then these elements kind of get restrained back, and it can get then morphed into something else. So maybe I think I've kind of drawn that quite a bit now. So maybe I just draw a random selection of lines, and then maybe think, oh, I'm going to get to that maybe. And then from that, I'll put a ground in there. Maybe it's just some kind of weird crossover hatch, maybe. Now I'll put a wheel on. Now I've got some unusual lines to work with. Now, by using those unusual lines, they then turn into something that's not necessarily original, because it might not turn into be very good, but you can kind of see what I'm getting at with this. So then I can think, okay, I'm going to start shading some stuff on here to try and get some form on here now. So I'll kind of do just do a back layer first, like a base layer. And then I'll kind of think, okay, maybe I want this to be negative under this line, maybe. So then I'm just going to get a nice sharp eraser. And then maybe I want it to go negative again under this line, maybe. So maybe it's got some kind of step in it, maybe. Again, these are all, there's no right or wrong answer to this, because the point of this is to kind of develop new ideas and fresh ideas. I do this all day long in my day job. Albeit I don't do cars in my day job, but maybe there's some kind of negative in here. I'm just trying not to think about it in terms of it's a hatchback or it's a sports car or it's a sedan or something. I'm just trying to think about, okay, I just want to do a nice piece of sculpture. Maybe I'll put a highlight in here. Maybe this here is a light catcher going up into the rear wheel. And then just put a bit of a highlight in there. So then you can see where these start to develop from and where they seem to go. And maybe I think, okay, I'm going to do a different coloured body panel in there maybe. So that kind of goes to that line. Carry that line down into there maybe. And I just try and think about it like that. This is the way that I start to process a project. And maybe I'll put some kind of shading into show something that's going on down here maybe. Maybe that line runs through. And then from the wheel arch I'll probably go up and then so I could spend a couple of hours now and I could just thrash out a load of lines like that and be done with that. Okay, I'm going to leave that one, I'm going to move on, I'll do another one now. And maybe I'm going to do something that's... And it's quite easy as well to do these in side profiles. Just because you haven't got to worry about what's happening in 3 dimensions. And you can get a slight bit of perspective gain on them. But again, it's quite easy to do this sort of thing as a side perspective. Maybe I'll put the wheel coming out. Maybe this isn't 3/4, but very. Oh, I've put the symmetry on. Maybe it's only very slightly, so it's almost dead on with the rear wheel. Maybe. So I'm going to get some. I'm thinking I'm going to get a light catcher in there. Maybe I'm going to have some kind of repeat pattern in there. So it's like this repeat sweep. Kind of into the front wheel arch maybe. Maybe there's a negative in here. Maybe it's going to be a Mercedes. So I'm going to put the 3-pointed star in and I'm going to make this kind of what you see in the A-Class. Maybe this is going to happen down here. And maybe it's going to be like a roof bar or something on there. Kind of what you get on the Estates roof rack sort of thing. Maybe there's going to be the typical Mercedes-Benz lights in there maybe. And maybe this pattern's going to repeat into here. And then that's going to be probably an exhaust opening or something. And then do the same process again. And I just think, well, what? I mean, you could render these either way the line is. So you could say underneath here is a positive or a negative. So maybe if this is a negative, whereas normally I'd think that's going to be a light bit. Maybe that's a dark bit. And then maybe, actually I'll put a base layer in as well. I always do this like kind of black and then fade out so it's a grey, just so that when you do white on top of it, it picks out the white. So like now if I was to do, okay, maybe this is a highlight above the black. And I'll try to keep these as loose as possible as well. I don't want to spend too much time on these because it might just be one line or one feature or one little nugget of the image that you think, oh, there's something interesting there. But so the looser they are and the quicker they're done, the more variety that's done, the more you get to choose from to pick out and refine. So maybe that's maybe there's a negative So I'm thinking like typical current Mercedes-Benz range, got this kind of negative underneath the crease that goes into the side of the car. So I'm just going to build that up in a few layers. I'm just going to soften the top of this off. Again, from a few lines, you're kind of building this up. And then put a strong black graphic in here, maybe. And I'll fade that out. Then I'll probably do a strong black sort of graphic in the hair, in the rear. And just playing with shapes really. Try not to think about like what are typical car proportions or product proportions, and just try and think, well, what's a nice shape more than anything else, and then how can I apply that to a product that's got to be functional regardless of what it is. And just experimenting, because it's easy to get in a rut and do the same things all the time. So it's kind of almost like a mental exercise that I do on a daily basis. So as many times as you'll find something on the internet and you're like, oh, that's quite inspirational. It makes a spark go off. At the same time, you'll have days where just nothing's happening. So I tend to do this to kind of just think, well, let's forget what I'm trying to be doing here, forget what the brief is, and I'm just going to do something to make it a bit thrillier and see what I can come up with. And it'll spark someone else off. Someone will look at it and be like, oh, that's quite interesting. And it gets them thinking about it as well. Which is where it comes to just being part of a good team. So again, just kind of playing around with highlights and shadows really. And just trying to build up something that looks quite interesting. It's not working for me. I mean, there might be aspects of that, but for what it's worth, I can't be bothered to carry on with that. So I'll do another one. This time I'm going to do almost 3/4, maybe. Yeah. And that's kind of a muscle memory now. I've kind of done that stroke because it's default for me. So how can I break that memory? Actually, I did a sketch earlier today, actually, in my lunch break. I was looking at Ford Fiesta for some reason. And I'm breaking the rules of what I've just been going on about for the past hour, but I'm thinking maybe this isn't actually anything like what I sketched earlier, but hey. So yeah, I'm just going to try and keep this quite free and quite loose, and play around with some shapes. I need to break that surface with something, so maybe just doing that. Maybe there's a negative in here. It kind of kicks out. Maybe there's all kinds of crazy surfacing going on in there. But the main feature of this is this line here, and this line kind of goes into the headlight maybe. I don't know. We'll do one side and then see how it goes. I'll just scale it down a bit. So again, I'm just going to block in some kind of background just for contrast reasons. And then I'm going to go white and then just put the headlight in the bright white. I'm just going to slightly refine these proportions of this light. The white. Yeah, it looks about right. I'm going to leave that white on the top layer. So I'll just start putting some shadows in maybe, so I'll come down here. Excuse the beeping. It is my computer and it's making a weird noise. So yeah, just put that shadow in there, see what that looks like. Do another one. Kind of going into here maybe. Soften up. Do another layer. Maybe that's going to be a negative. It naturally wants to be a positive, so it's a highlight, but for the purpose of this, I might just do it as a negative. So maybe this surface is actually doing this. Who knows? So then, just to confirm and emphasise that, maybe I'll put a highlight in above it. And just erase to that line. Again, I'm just doing it properly loose. I'm not really bothered about whether it's being precise or not. So maybe this is all like an eyebrow, maybe coming off the back of that headlight. I'm going to soften that up a bit, so it's a bit harsh. And in contrast to that, I'll do a highlight down here. So maybe that kind of leads into that edge there. I don't know. Again, it's going to soften that up as well. Then maybe that's the vent intake. And maybe there's going to be a highlight on here. Oops. And again, if you make mistakes, don't even worry about it. Sometimes you make happy mistakes. Mistakes that are good. And then maybe there's going to be some kind of negative on the other side of this crease, right down into the bonnet. And then all this is probably a floating surface above the main body in the middle. So I'm going to try and be a bit more accurate with this line, purely because I've already rendered bits. And I'm going to kind of disappear into the actual rear. Just a rogue bit of white, just remove that. Back on this line, I'll just soften that out. And then you see how this has just developed now into something that I wouldn't have drawn off if I was thinking about it too much. I wouldn't have drawn it the way it is. Whereas the process of just starting with a series of random lines can then be refined into either a product or an automotive form. Maybe this continues into here. It's a little negative. That noise is really irritating me, so I do apologise if it irritates you, but just for argument's sake, we'll just put a few spokes in here. Just so it just subconsciously makes a bit more sense as to what is actually going on. work out this setup to colours. If you notice, I keep doing this because I keep doing what I do at work. I have the most used colours set up on this wheel, and I just do that by default there. So you're going to pick the colour. So like what I'll have on my thing set up, I'll have black, white, red, maybe a blue. Just so I don't have to keep coming up and picking colours, it's just quicker. Speed is the name of the game. I don't know what I've done there, but it looks massive though. And maybe I'll put a highlight down there just to finish it off. But then, in some cases, this could be enough now, so I could leave this as it is, and it'd be enough to get my idea across as an initial thought or initial concept. Just like, what about this? I'm doing it again. Default mode. So maybe this is a. Oh, I keep doing that. It's stupid. Maybe this is a Ford. What if? And I hope that helps your approach to how you do these. Yeah, see, out of a random thought and a random line, you can create something fresh and different. So, experiment is what I'd say. I encourage you to try random things and go from there. See what you can create that's fresh and different. Cheers.